Greetings to all our learners. Welcome to the lecture. The topic of analysis is World Development Patterns. In this lecture, we shall try to explain how the idea of world development has multifaceted aspects. We shall try to understand definitions, various inputs that have a bearing on the concept of development. In this lecture, we shall elaborate on global patterns and new parameters that are concerning development, and for that, we shall use the facts and the findings of the World Development Report by the World Bank. In this lecture, we shall also try to explain that how, when we look at the contemporary international relations, there is an urgent need to review international development issues, and this is in light of new challenges for issues of security, national interest, amongst others. In this lecture, as we try to understand development, we shall look at new issues in development, focus on the World Development Report, and as well as presenting new insights into the findings of the World Development Report by the World Bank. As we begin the CEC lecture on the topic of world development patterns, the first thing that we must analyze here is what do we mean by development? Development, dear learners, it is a process. Now, this process creates growth. This process leads to progress. It leads to positive change or addition of, say, physical, economic, environmental, social and demographic components. So, as we try to understand the growth, the progress or the positive change, and also its impact on physical, economic, environmental, social and demographic components, one gets the sense that there are different types of development. For example, economic development, environmental development, political development. Now, to analyze any nation state or any particular society for the issues of development is indeed challenging, because development has multifaceted aspects. As we begin the journey, let's draw attention towards the Branded Report. In the year 1980, the Branded Report, it divided the world into the poor South and the rich North. The Branded Report was an independent commission. It was an outcome of the workings of the Independent Commission on International Development Issues. This international development issues and the working of the Independent Commission presenting to us the Branded Report, this was chaired by Willy Brandt, the former Chancellor of West Germany, and this was there in the year 1980s, and it was widely referred to as the Branded Report. Now, this report, it which was entitled as North, South, a program for survival. It was a pragmatic way for nations, that is, the pragmatic way to work out their future was to reduce economic disparities between rich North and developing South. And since then, what we see here is that the patterns of development are no longer about rich versus poor, are no longer about developed versus developing, because global patterns of development have become more complex. And why that so? There are three important aspects to that. The context of the global politics is defined by rise of new centers of power. The defining parameter of global politics in the present scenario here is that there are new security dimensions, and within this, the very important aspect that there is rise of interdependence, globalization, process of integration, exchange, that have led to rise of new centers of power, new security dimensions and related to it is the aspect of interdependence. Now, here in which one tries to understand that to understand the changing parameters of global politics, development is indeed a very important variable. In this regard, there have been several institutions and they have published their report periodically. There have been many reports of different subjects published by the different international organizations. As we take our study forward, we take the case study of the World Development Report, IBRD. This is by the World Bank. Just to begin with, the World Bank Group, it was founded at the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944. The World Bank Group works with developing countries to reduce poverty and increase shared prosperity. The World Bank Group, as we try to understand their functions, it provides financing, policy advice, technical assistance to governments. It also focuses on strengthening the private sector in developing countries. Here in which it is also important to distinguish between IMF and the World Bank. International Monetary Fund serves to stabilize international monetary system and acts as a monitor of the world currency. As an important international organization, the International Monetary Fund keeps track of the economy globally and in member countries, lends to countries with balance of payments, difficulties, and also gives practical help to members. Now, here in which, just to make the working bit clear, countries must join the IMF to be eligible to join the World Bank Group. Today, when we look at the figures presented by imf.org, worldbank.org, their website sources, it is said that each institution has 189 member countries. Now, when we look at this rising membership of the World Bank Group by respective member nation states, this also tells to us that how their report would try to take into account a bigger framework, a bigger plane of analysis for understanding world development. The World Bank Group, as we just understood, that it is one of the world's largest sources of funding and knowledge for developing countries. IBRD and IDA form the World Bank, which provides financing, policy advice, technical assistance to governments of developing countries. The IDA focuses on the world's poorest countries. IBRD assists middle income and credit-worthy poorer countries. IFC, MIGA, ISCSID focus on strengthening the private sector in developing countries. It provides financing, technical assistance, political risk insurance, settlement of disputes to private enterprise, including the financial institutions. Now, this brings us to the important dimension that is for focus, that is World Bank's World Development Report. This report has been published annually since 1978. This report is an important guide to the economic, social and environmental state of the world today. This report is useful for policy analysis. Many multilateral and bilateral international organizations, national governments take reference to the points and facts and findings of the report for their policy making. Each report, as we know that this is an annual report, so each year this report provides in-depth analysis and policy recommendations on a specific and important aspect of development. Now, for the purpose of our study, we shall look at the 3 years. So, therefore, the 3 years that are used for analysis and study are 2018, 2019 and 2020. As pointed out, each year the World Bank's World Development Report takes on a topic of central importance to global development. And the findings of this report gives us an analysis and insight towards issues that are there for patterns of development that are there with reference to the global scenario. In the year 2018, the report titled Learning to Realize Education's Promise. The source of this report, that is World Development Report 2018, Learning to Realize Education's Promise, and we take it from World Bank reference sources. It points towards 4 aspects. Education's promise, that is, education is a powerful instrument for eradicating poverty and promoting shared prosperity. But fulfilling its potential requires better policies, both within and outside the education system. Learning crisis. Despite gains in educational access, recent learning assessments show that many young people around the world, especially from poor families, are leaving schools unequipped with even the most foundational skills they need for life. Promising interventions to improve learning. Learning at scale, that is, achieving learning throughout an education system, will require more than just scaling up effective interventions. Once again, we are quoting from the World Bank 2018 World Development Report, Learning to Realize Education's Promise. As the report points out, that schooling is not same as learning. Further, schooling without learning is not just a wasted opportunity, but a great injustice. Then it also points out that there is nothing inevitable about how learning in low and middle income countries. The report points out about 3 dimensions of the learning crisis. The first dimension of the crisis is poor learning outcomes themselves. The second dimension, that is learning crisis is its immediate causes. Children arrive unprepared to learn. Children arrive unprepared to learn, and then teachers often also lack the skills or motivation to teach effectively. Inputs often fail to reach classrooms or affect learning. Poor management and governance often undermines schooling quality. And the third dimension of the crisis here is the deeper systemic causes. Now, 3 policy actions to address the crisis, as the report points out: access learning to make it a serious goal, act on evidence to make schools work for learners, align actors to make the system work for learning. Moving further, so 2018 presented to us pattern of a global development where education today has an important bearing for human resources of a particular nation, for global development too. The 2019 World Development Report, that is focusing on how nature of work is changing as a result of advances in the technology under present day circumstances. The report points out that technological progress, it disrupts existing systems. A new social contract is needed to smooth the transition and guard against rising inequality. Significant investments in human capital throughout a person's life cycle are vital to this effort. We are quoting from World Bank 2019 World Development Report, The Changing Nature of Work, that is from the World Development Report, Washington DC, World Bank. This report suggests 3 solutions. Invest in human capital, especially in disadvantaged groups, and early childhood education to develop the new skills that are increasingly in demand in the labor market. This report points out that there is a need to enhance social protection to ensure universal coverage and protection that does not fully depend on having formal wage employment. The report points out that there is a need to increase revenue mobilization by upgrading taxation systems where needed to provide fiscal space to finance human capital development and social protection. The report points out global value chains powered the surge of international trade after 1990. Global value chains account for almost half of all trade. Since 2008 global financial crisis, however, the growth of trade has been sluggish and expansion of global value chains has stalled. Meanwhile, serious threats have emerged to the model of trade-led growth. New technologies could draw production closer to the consumer and reduce the demand for labor. And conflicts amongst large countries could lead to retrenchment of or segmentation of global value chains. Once again, we are quoting from the World Development Report 2019. Moving further, looking at the World Development Report 2020, that is trading for development in the age of global value chains. That is, global value chains today account for 50% of global trade today. Then new technologies, when we look at automation, 3D printing, they are cause for concern. Global value chains can continue to be a force for sustainable and inclusive development if, as the report points out, developing countries speed up trade and investment reforms and improve connectivity. Advanced economies pursue open, predictable policies. All countries strengthen social and environmental protection to ensure the benefits of global value chain participation are shared and are sustainable. In the age of global value chains, the need for greater international cooperation, as the report points out, it is urgent. Public policies and economic conditions in one country strongly affect trade partners through production linkages. All countries need to work cooperatively to address policies that distort trade. So, dear learners, as we were pointing out towards world development patterns, we took reference to the World Bank's World Development Report. The 2018 report presented to us insights towards learning, the report titled as Learning to Realize Education's Promise. The 2019 report pointed towards a changing nature of work, and the 2020 report looked towards trading and development in the age of global value chains. So, the perspective that we get forward here is that today world development is indeed multidimensional. Today the ambit of world development is just not economic. It has a bearing with reference to education, human resources, technology, innovations, disruption, and all of it has a bearing with reference to policy making of respective nation states also. There are many international organizations that regularly publish annual reports, important reports pertaining to particular subjects. The World Bank's World Development Report, as we saw with reference to the case study of 2018, 2019 and 2020, indeed presented to us that today when we look at world development patterns, there are new horizons to that. In the global scenario, world development patterns are dynamic and witnessing new challenges as well as new opportunity every time. What is needed that nations must try to analyze the idea of a national interest which is holistic, comprehensive and taking inputs, significant insights from the important reports that point towards the need to factor in education, disruptions, innovation, technology, automation amongst others as important aspects in world development patterns. We hope the lecture on World Development Patterns with focus on World Development Report by the World Bank 2018, 2019 and 2020 presented to you significant inputs to analyze issues concerning world development. We look forward to positive, encouraging feedback from you all. Thank you very much.